It's Jesse Blaze Snyder, the Coolest Geek Alive, and you're listening to both an episode of Coolest Geek Alive and an episode of Everything They Don't Want You to Know. For you Coolest Geek Alive people who just want my movie recommendation, it's going to be right up here at the front, and I'm going to just use it as a catalyst to talk about gratitude, and I promise you, it is a very powerful thing, and we'll get into all the reasons why. I've kind of talked about this before in other episodes of Everything They Don't Want You to Know. If you listen to that show, it's all on essentially esoteric wisdom, the stuff that they teach in secret societies, hermetic principles, universal laws, and clear and present things going on in this world if you're paying attention. Anyway, today we are talking about gratitude, and we're talking about this great movie that I just saw last night, The Unbreakable Boy. I had seen the trailer for it. My girl had seemed to remember that we had seen it a long time ago, and all of a sudden I saw it come up as an option. I was going to go see that Woody Harrelson movie, I forget what it's called. And when I saw Unbreakable Boy was out, I went, I think maybe I got to go see that. And I did. Oh my God, I cried my eyes out for the whole movie. But it's wonderful. It's good sorts of tears. A young boy, both with a rare brittle bone disease and autism, transforms everyone around him with his joyous, funny, and life-affirming worldview. Not only is it a great movie, like all the greatest parts of the movie are real story that really happened, and makes it that much more heartwarming when you find that out at the end, how much of it is legit. The lead character who plays the husband, who really kind of, I would say, goes through the most growth in this movie, is played by Zachary Levi. I really like him. I've met him before in person, and I thought he was a very genuinely good dude. And as I've observed him, he seems to be a pretty good man. And it was cool to see him do this movie, because it's just about learning how to be a better man and learning how to be appreciative, learning gratitude. Oof. It's going to be so hard not to cry during this episode of the show. Okay. For those of you who don't know, I have 4 children, and seeing anybody struggle with their children and their health, and I've also dealt with, I guess, like a dozen years of chronic body pain now, and I'm taking control of it, but it's still been kicking my ass pretty good, and it's really, gives you some perspective, and, once you go through pain like that, you don't want to see anybody in pain at all, especially not any sort of chronic pain, and suffice to say, having to see a family go through that on any level it's just, if you are not experiencing it, you just can't even imagine. And it seems like that crazy gulf where, like, people tell you, like, I know you have some dogs and you have a cat, but until you have a kid, you just can't even imagine. And it's it's a similar sort of like leap of, I'm sure I can't even imagine. And, for me, to see people dealing with real problems, with real difficulty, and getting through it the right way is just, I think, the greatest medicine there is. And this movie is filled with that. There's a lot of hard lessons, and it'll make you cry in sadness, and it'll make you think about choices you've made and things you've thought about. It's really a wonderful film. The wife is played by Megan Fahey. I've never seen her in anything before, but she was great. Everybody was really good. The lead character, and I told you this is based on a real person. He has an imaginary friend who he apparently talks to this day, and it's so funny because I am I don't know, most people would call me a crazy person, but I talk to my spirit guides regularly, and it was just really funny to see somebody find out that he does this regularly, and whether he knows it or not, I believe that he's basically connected to the same thing that I'm connecting to, just interpreting that thing in another way. So it's really interesting to see that, because this thing is giving him insight and advice. This person who's a friend of his, but he's a hallucination, and the hallucination friend is great. Who played that part? Drew Powell. He was awesome. And Jacob Leavell plays Austin. I don't know if he is dealing with anything or he's just acting. But he did a really great job. It was just very earnest and just a wonderful portrayal. Also, the brother, Logan, played by Gavin Warren, he was awesome and super understated. But as a kid in that situation sort of becomes, but he's also in this situation with this beautiful light, because Austin, the Ozman, he is just an undying light. And he is getting hurt and suffering throughout this movie. Sorry. It's just beautiful. But his character is not diminished. And his character affects everybody so much, in so many good ways. Sorry, I cried the whole movie. And it's, it's good stuff. It's good medicine, man. This is a proper recommendation for anybody who wants a happy cry. It's a nice happy cry. It's a good one. Patricia Heaton from Everybody Loves Raymond, and a guy named Todd Terry plays parents of Zachary Levi's character. They're really, everybody's just real solid in the movie, and really it's just the heart of the movie is my dude Austin. Your attitude is everything. Your attitude can really fuck up your life. And this kid is there to win his father over in such a powerful way when you see the film, and the things that happen in it are largely true. And the dad is really wrapped up in a lot of things. A lot of his best laid plans get blown up by Austin because it's an unplanned pregnancy, and there's an ongoing joke within the movie of I think I love you, as opposed to I love you, because they've been they're kind of doing the right thing by each other, as opposed to this happening naturally because of Austin's birth. And then the mother has this defect where her bones are more brittle, but it's not as bad as some people's can be, but she's got to be careful. And the son has it worse, but he's also got autism, but he's very high-functioning autism. And there's a spectrum of autism. I actually believe that I am most likely on the autism spectrum somewhere, very high-functioning. As there are many people on this thing, it just sort of leads to certain, not personality defects, but certain problems that are, kind of cluster problems, sort of suggest, yeah, you're probably on the autism spectrum somewhere. And I have a lot of the same issues that a lot of people on that spectrum have. But Austin's maybe quite a bit further, less functioning than I am, even though he's still quite functioning. He really is, and very engaged and very talkative, and and that's kind of the wonderful thing about him, because he is so exuberantly positive through broken bone after broken bone after broken bone. This kid shows up with a great attitude. There's a moment in the movie where he kind of falls apart, but turns out it was the medicine that they were giving him that literally chokes his brother. And it's a real bad moment, but it turns out he was just on some medicine that was driving him crazy. And I've seen pharmaceutical medicine mess with all my own members of my own family. That's a real thing. And this story is really just a very real and very moving, and the perspective that we hold, it's so important. And this guy's perspective from the circumstances of this child coming in, and then the situation with him being rather difficult. They're in and out of the hospital. It costs a lot of money. The main issue that he deals... Oops, sorry. It's like a hiccup. The main issue he deals with is alcoholism. But it could be anything, and it could be a state of mind. And, and here I'll say, like, we can kind of get into, because I just want to talk about gratitude, and I'll keep coming back to reference this movie, but it's great. Go see it. If you don't want to hear a little bit more about like gratitude, I'll see you on the next episode of Coolest Geek Alive on Wednesday. See you on the next episode of Coolest Geek Alive. All right, everybody else, stick around with me. So I had an experience a long time ago now that caused me to get this tattoo that I'm holding up for the people. I'm doing a live stream on Facebook while I record this for podcast. This show goes out to hundreds of thousands of people on this one, and Coolest Geek Alive in general goes out. We get like 1 million downloads a month or something like close to that. I don't know exactly where we are on this show, because this show's newer, but probably at least 100, 200, 300,000. But I've been doing it live because I'm going to be starting to do it live eventually, and I don't like doing it live. I feel uncomfortable on camera, talking real and being myself like this, and it's easier to do it when I'm not on camera. Like right now, I can't see the camera. I can't see comments. I can't see nothing, so that I can just record this and be myself. Anyway, but I'm recording this, and so why did I get this tattoo? Thank you. I went through a real gradual spiritual awakening at 28 years old, going into like 29, which was where like the real everything sort of opened up to me. And I did this through plant medicine. And it started with I was having trouble breaking into comics, as they say, or being a utility man in the comic book world, because, or at least I was starting to think it was because I didn't drink. And so much business was being done at the bar after work, and like, hey, come meet me at the bar kind of thing. And since I wasn't anybody's drinking buddy, it was kind of like keeping me at a certain distance that certain people were able to kind of get to, that and I could actually feel it occasionally, people being sort of like sometimes insulted, but often insecure because like I didn't drink and like they did. So I opened myself up to the idea that I was going to start just socially drinking. I was just going to pick, like, I don't like alcohol, so I was just going to pick something that I could drink, and I was going to drink a little bit. And to this day, I do that. And then the other one was that maybe I should, try some marijuana. Like lots of reasonable people who I knew over the years, good friends of mine who were cool and whatnot, had smoked marijuana, and they seemed okay. And again, that seemed like a little bit of a social barrier thing that I was putting up, and I didn't want to have that anymore. I wanted to feel more like the other humans. I always felt like a weirdo anyway, so I was trying to feel more, be closer with people. So anyway, funnily enough, while I was sort of thinking about that, and I don't know if I thought about the marijuana. The alcohol was the one that I thought about the most. Marijuana I hadn't really thought about. But my drummer, right before he passed away, he convinced me to try some pot brownies, and I was open to the marijuana ever since. Just nobody had ever offered it to me. And it was like years. my drummer died right before I turned 21, and this wasn't until I was 28. So I was completely straight edge. I never did any drugs, nothing. I liked to make love, but that was my only vice. Didn't drink, didn't do drugs. Didn't I didn't like to take painkillers, or don't really like to take pharmaceutical medicine or anything like that. Always tried to live fairly naturally. And even I had asthma as a kid, and they gave me an inhaler once or twice, but I never used it. I didn't like the idea of it. I would just power through. So I wasn't like a big, lean on this thing or anything, and that wasn't my motivation, getting into any of these things. It was really like a social thing. Anyway, I remember my brother came to me and he was like, "Oh, you should try marijuana," and he was shocked that I was open to it, but it was just sort of the right time and stuff. And I didn't end up smoking marijuana with him. Oh wow, this is such a funny story. The first time I ever smoked marijuana, and I don't want to say that Zachary Levi smoked marijuana with me, because he may not have. I don't remember if he smoked or not. But I was at a party where I met him, and I met a number of other actors, and they were all fine, but he was lovely. Granted, I was a really big fan of his from Tangled. I love that movie. Tangled, fuck yeah. Awesome flick. "This is the strangest thing I have ever done." I'm pretty sure I quoted him to himself. And I was like, dude, that movie in my house, me and my kids, me and my wife at the time, we fucking love that movie. You rule. You should be a bigger actor. I think you're so charming. And good luck and shit. But he was really gracious and cool. Liked him a lot. And it was actually the first time I ever smoked marijuana. And at the time, it was I knew Seth Green and his wife Claire, who he was into toys, and I'm big into toys. So I tried to kind of become friends with him at the time, but he kind of put up a wall to me, I guess, to some degree. And I would just run into him every now and then, but that was it. And now I know that let's just say Seth is pretty deep in to the cabal of celebrities and things like that. So I'm pretty glad that that relationship never went any further. But at the time, I was just like, you make robot chicken, and I love toys, and I have a toy city, and you would appreciate me, and I'd appreciate you. And we like to be funny, and I like to be funny. But I think he sensed my innocence. I'm not sure he is. I suppose time will tell. Maybe he is not, but from what I can tell, he's deep in whatever they're into. And whatever it turns out they're all into, and whatever it eventually ends up showing they're into, I guess will eventually be whatever it is. That whole situation is rough. I'm pretty sure that Mr. Zachary Levi is not involved in that kind of stuff. And, and he recently came out, not really as a conservative, I am a centrist. I've always been a centrist, but all of a sudden you spout some central kind of viewpoints and people are like, you're a Nazi. I'm like, what is going on here? The times they have changed. So Zachary Levi, I really like him a lot. Really think he's a rational, cool person. I met him just briefly, but he was really genuine and cool, and I've observed him since, and I think he's fucking awesome. And I don't know if he has anything to do with this movie. I meant to check and see if he was a producer on it, but I hope he is, and I hope he has anything to do with it, and I hope it's a success, because it's a great movie and people should see it. And I was really bummed out. This is a Coolest Geek Alive kind of thing. For those of you who didn't listen to this episode or whatever, The Rock did a stupid big dick Arnold Schwarzenegger versus Stallone in the 80s kind of thing, where he kept Captain Marvel out of his movie that was played by Zachary Levi, and he kept himself out of the Shazam movie. And Black Adam and Captain Marvel, Shazam, are completely linked together. They're intrinsically linked. He's the evil version of Shazam. And all the movies would have been better for it if The Rock was the bad guy, additionally, in that first movie, which was great. You should see the Shazam movie. The second movie is okay. The first movie is great, though. Really, really great. And it would have been that much better if Black Adam was in it. And Black Adam, Shazam showing up in the Black Adam movie, that would have been exciting. And they could have built to something that way. I mean, it just was idiotic. And I really believe that it was because The Rock was intimidated by Zachary Levi's star power. Zach is charming as fuck, and it's terrible because they've kind of let him get a little older, and he's been like young and ready for prime time, a Ryan Reynolds ish, charmer, and I mean he's great. He's a strong performer and actor, and and I'm glad to see him in things now after Shazam or whatnot. But I really think that whole movie got taken out at the legs by The Rock's ego, which is so lame. Anyway, so getting off the subject of Zachary Levi and me smoking marijuana for the first time, I don't think I even got high. I don't go to a lot of, parties and stuff. That's probably one of the only times I've ever went to one of these trendy little party bits. They tend to just take too much energy to keep up with the Joneses. So I don't. I just hang out with my own friends. That was the beginning of me trying marijuana. And marijuana eventually, and it took maybe a couple different sessions of me smoking, because the first few times it was just sort of oh wow, and I relaxed in a way that I've never relaxed before. But really, what I realized quickly over time was that I had this massive anxiety. And I was worried about things and overthinking things and in my head, and just really a crippling anxiety. But I was powering through it all the time and hiding it. So all of a sudden I started to sort of get a handle on myself in a way, and kind of take control of my mind when I went out into the world. And there was a moment where I really entered the beginning of a utopian phase of my personal evolution of feeling good about who I was and being able to be the man I wanted to be and do things the way I wanted to do it. And the next step was a psilocybin mushroom trip, a Superman trip, as Terrence McKenna might say, 5.5 grams or ounces. What is it? 5.5 grams? I'm dyslexic. It's one of those. I had read Steve Jobs' book, and Steve Jobs said that if not for an LSD trip in college, that he never would have invented Apple computers. I found that to be a pretty profound statement, especially since the Beatles, who've been credited with the greatest, whatever, they were part of the psychedelic revolution, and there was some other signs of some truth to sort of wonderful creative thinking coming from working with these plants. So that was my motivation to expand my mind. I researched LSD, and psilocybin mushrooms kept coming up kind of alongside them as to be similar. I don't actually find them to be similar myself. And granted, generally I've done these things all in very sort of controlled meditational sort of experiences. Though once or twice I have done some LSD, just going out clubbing in Vegas with my friend. He likes to dance. Basically I was his chaperone. And I saw sort of a difference of sort of and why people tend to do it like that. The psilocybin mushrooms are more my choice in general of just a thing to learn about life. But people who like to party, I understand why they like to do that. I kind of will occasionally get pulled into a party drug with a friend who likes to do that. If I love them and want to be a part of, an experience with them. But generally speaking, for me, the only things that I mess with are the stuff that grows in the ground. Whatever that may be. And there's plenty of things that I've done. And occasionally, is it Bufo? Or there's another, it's a toad medicine. I have a couple light scars on my arm from where I got I did a ceremony a while back. Releasing energy things. There's things that don't even get you high or whatever, but it's just working with the plants, and the plants will help you move energy. And energy is basically the foundations of everything that you're doing when you're healing yourself or healing your emotions or healing anything. So I advocate for plants. My brother has a great show called Acid for Squares, where all he talks about is plant medicine. I've been meaning to advertise for the show. It's awesome. Acid for Squares, Cody Blue Snyder and his wife Tanya. She's awesome. Yeah, if you really want to have a nice education about psychedelic medicine, and they are really doing the work and getting in the right people, experts, and people who have really been studying this stuff and looking at it and can tell you all the things that I already know. And I mean, I could tell you this stuff too, but they can tell you with a whole bunch of sheets and shit like that. But these are things that, I learned from doing it. Because doing it was, holy shit, it was not anything that I thought it was going to be. My expectations and my reality for doing a psychedelic drug was just like, it was crazy different for me. And I had a couple experiences at once when these mushrooms kicked in. And I was doing this by myself. My family was away, and I'd been reading about it for a long time, and I got a hold of some and decided to do it the Terrence McKenna way and do this big dose or whatever. And as they kicked in, I sort of felt and saw so many things at once, so many equalizing things emotionally. It filled me with gratitude, because there was this great equalization of the problems that I had that I could count. You gave me a notebook and gave me enough time, I could write down all the problems that I had. But the possibilities of good, the possibility of benefit, the things I wanted to do, my aspirations, my expectations, my friends, my family, I loved them all more than any trouble I could write in a book about them or my life or the circumstances. That was like this big. And everything else wasn't only much bigger, but it was infinitely bigger. Infinitely bigger, as to dwarf any fucking size that I could put to anything. I am not capable of generating enough things ever as a human being to fucking fight the enormity of good that there was in the world. I realized right then that I had a bunch of stupid gripes with my parents that were small and insignificant. At the time, I was convinced that I needed to speak to them specifically about these things and address these things and unwrap these things so that we could put them away. As it turned out, that would only just kind of trigger them and make them upset. And I had to just kind of get over it all and put it into reasonable perspective. And, a reasonable perspective is they did the best they could at the time with the tools they had in their brains, hearts, and, minds. What we're all doing. And granted, some parents, they're not willing to throw themselves on the mercy of the court as readily as you might be. And I do think that sometimes is a sticking point. I think if you could just go, whatever it is, I accept it, and what do you need? Let's get through it, is just sort of the best way to go about it all. But this moment of gratitude gave me the ability to do that. I hadn't had any tattoos. I was very scared of getting my tattoos because my mom had kind of put it in my head that she didn't like her tattoos and that, you're going to regret it, blah, 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 blah. I ended up getting this phoenix as a bracelet. I was going to get it on my back for a long time. That was my plan. But I got it as a bracelet because I decided I wanted my tattoos to be like jewelry. And I wanted thank you on the other side so that I would always remember. There's a couple other words I've wanted to get tattooed on my arm. I guess one or two people, including my sister, have made me feel like silly about this thing. Like, you need this. I'm like, yes, it's a powerful spell. Reminds me, keeps me connected to my gratitude, makes sure that I'm never too far away from it. Sometimes it's really hard to connect to gratitude. Sometimes things in your life and situations in your life are, do not want. And it's hard to be grateful. That's why I always try to focus on the thing, like I said, focus on the fact that my kids are healthy and happy and smart and talented. I am so fucking blessed. Everybody's got something to fucking focus on. And you just got to focus on whatever it is, and listen, there's a fucking, if my kids were fucking dead, I'd have to be, I'd be sitting here going, I just realized that, like, I'm breathing and I really like surfing or something like that, because that's what you got to do. You can't live in this world from a place of loss. You have to live from a place of gratitude, knowing that everything is working out for your highest good. And it's very difficult to believe that. I know. I didn't think that everything was working out for my highest good when my best friend was taken from me a little before my 21st birthday, right after he and I became best friends. We were good friends for 2 years. We were working together. He was my drummer. I was his singer. We were writing songs together. We were getting closer and closer. But on our car ride, right before he died, we became best friends. And we planned our whole life. Our whole life. And I can tell you, that did not feel like my highest good. That did not feel like God was on my side. And the next day, after my best friend died, or later that day, I don't even remember, when I was asleep again for just a little bit of time, and I got woken up again, the second time getting awoken on my cell phone, and my ex-wife, who I was about to ask to marry me, had fallen on her face and broken her jaw and shattered all of her teeth. Really, she's hairline fractures in her mouth to this day. Hurt herself. And I brought my wedding ring down to the engagement ring. I brought it down to the hospital where she was, because it was very funny to me, as somebody who didn't believe in God. I was gonna fucking arm wrestle God on that day. My friend was dead, and now my girl's gonna die or get hurt, and I said no. I'm gonna ask her to marry me before something goes wrong or something like that. And I remember my former father-in-law, Paul, he talked me out of it. And I was planning on doing it at this party, and I did it at the party. And it was a nice moment. Her mouth was wired shut, and I asked her. But it was very much like this very strange moment of God interfering in my life. And I could tell you that, recapitulating all of that, my uncle later, 3 days after that, he got shot in New York City, and my family was dealing with an FBI case on the people who did it for a decade. It was a hard moment in time to go through all of that. But they say, why do the good die young? And I did a comic book, Evil Ernie. I redid Evil Ernie lovingly because I love Brian Pulido. I did it for Dynamite. I just did the 6-issue origin. And it was all about, ultimately, my version was about trying to explain why the good die young, and that Ernie was fundamentally good, and he just was killing really terrible people. And but that wasn't good for heaven, because they need the good people to die young so that heaven can be stronger. And this was me dealing with Chris's death, my drummer. And he was really good. He was a truly good guy. I remember coming in early one morning before rehearsal. We were in the studio working on an album, and I was a VJ on MTV. Things were really like popping in my life in a really good way. And he worked for his father's company, and he was building these custom cabinets, and he was carving the wood, hand carving the wood, and it was incredible work. Beautiful. This whole like high-end kitchen for some rich family out in Montauk. And I guess he was 21. Maybe he was just a little older than that. 20-something-year-old kid was custom carving their wood. His drum teacher was Bobby Rondinelli, the drummer from Blue Oyster Cult, who's a great drummer. And my dad asked Bobby for a recommendation, and Bobby said, Chris Deline. And Chris was a great dude. And I remember the memorial for his thing. There was a time when I remember Chris was getting disrespected, and he got into a fight, and he kind of got his ass kicked a little bit. But he stood up for himself, and he went through. And I was sort of mortified on his behalf, because I had sort of not exactly gone as far as he was willing to go to stand up for myself once or twice. And I was like, first embarrassed, but then sort of realized I was really proud of him. And like, that was hard what he did. And I was like, happy to know him. Still miss my friend. But I'm grateful to have known him. And do you see how many things I have to share with you about Chris? There's more things. You know, my guitar player, I really liked him, but he wasn't good enough. His skill wasn't there, but he was dedicated. And on the way home, Chris was like, let me work with him. I'll get him into shape. He's a good guy, and we both really like him. And we'd love to spend more time with him. So let's make it work with him. And I said, all right, man, if you can help me get him to the place we need, I'm in. So devastated, you know, like when he died, and like that Omar, the guitar player that I'm talking about, he had to see it all. And Omar was very talented on a lot of levels. I was just very, very insecure about playing out, and he was very, very loose, kind of jam bandy kind of guy. I don't really have any problems with him as a player, you know, like he's got his own style and stuff. He's cool, and I liked him, but I didn't feel like I could like get what I needed from him without Chris. But Chris, he could have done that. You know, now maybe I could have. But Chris was there already. He was mature for his age. He was, you know, we were using Pro Tools. He got that shit together. He was enterprising and smart, and like he was one of those guys where you go, why do the good always die young? But they do die young to inspire us. And as much as him dying really took the wind out of my sails in a lot of ways, he inspired me a lot. And I saw so many people that he inspired. And at his memorial and his funeral, or his funeral really was his memorial. It was on the beach, and He was a great guy. His family are great people. His sister, great people. His girlfriend, great people. His friends, great people. Everybody he knew was wonderful. And we all adored him. He was awesome. And there's a lot of people like that who go. And there's a lot of things in this world that seem rotten. But we have to focus on the gratitude. We have to focus on the things that make us happy and are working. It's from that place that we can find ourselves to better. Last week, I talked on the Everything They Don't Want You to Know podcast about prayer and rain dancing and positive mental attitude, all these things. What, if you were listening, what do you remember was the last part of the story of the shaman? The shaman went out to the field, he stood there, closed his eyes, and he says, let's eat, right? But when he explains it to the guy, what he was really doing, he says that he was imagining, he was envisioning the moisture in the ground. He was feeling it in his feet. He was smelling it in the air. He was seeing the rain falling upon the ground. He was seeing the crops rise. He was seeing his family tending to the crops. He was seeing his family preparing the food. He was seeing his family enjoying it. And he was grateful because it had already come. He was grateful that it had already come. Why should we be so grateful when it seems like there are so many things to be upset about? There are always more things to be grateful about. There are always more things to be grateful for. And the deeper an understanding we get for the way in which all things are connected and guided by a supreme intelligence that is subtly working out all immeasurements, balancing all things. And it's really our job to come to balance, to come to faith that there's no extraneous reason for God to amplify our suffering. Anything that may be there is serving a purpose. Anything that we might describe as, well, look what has happened to me, look what happened to me yesterday, it's all serving a purpose. I had heard a video the other day. It was wonderful. It was from this kind of alpha male guy, but it is the greatest fucking advice you will ever get. That when things go wrong at his company, he says, good. He had an assistant. His assistant would call him. He would say, such and such happened to whatever. Kind of be like panicking. He would say, good. And one day, the assistant called him, and he says, such and such is blowing up or whatever. He's like, but I know what you're going to say. Good. And he's like, that's right. You know why I say good? And he said, well, I don't know if the guy got the answer. I don't remember. I remember the answer, but I don't remember if the guy got the answer right or if he gave him the answer. But he said, because it is good. Because this gives me an opportunity to learn, to grow, to avoid a problem down the line. In medicine, most of our doctors are taught so backwards. They're taught to address a symptom of a problem that tends to be more foundational. You know, an imbalance in chemicals in your body could lead to a headache or a soreness or whatever it might be, and then they give you a pill to cover up the soreness. That doesn't actually help the foundational problem that you're having, which is like an imbalance in, let's say, magnesium or something like that, which can be really easily fixable. And you'd be surprised how many of these things aren't exactly being tested for and screened for as you go in for your annuals and whatnot, because it's just not in the medical industry's best interest to do these things for you. So, having an attitude of gratitude. Now, gratitude can be a tough one for some people. But there's a great teacher. She goes around. She channels this spirit, Abraham, and she's Abraham Hicks, but it's Esther Hicks is the lady. She's the channeler. She is as legit a channeler as they come. Her information is consistent as fuck and absolutely falls in line with my understanding of universal law and the Hermetic principles and how the universe is really working. I used her often. I would type in questions and her name that I had about my child rearing because I didn't want to project into their minds fears about things, and I was trying to, how do I handle all my fears about them getting run over by cars when I'm friggin' riding bicycles with them without making them think that they're helpless. And because that's what like parents, we're like, we can either make our kids feel that they are safe and capable, or we can make them feel like they're incapable and unsafe. And that is really all we reinforce or don't reinforce. And so in the earlier days of my kids, I wasn't, I'm pretty good at largely doing the reinforcing you guys are safe and you can do this now. But, that took a little bit of learning. Because, clear and present danger, look, there's a car, look, and at the same time, what are the odds they actually get hit by a car, but you want to diminish those odds and whatever else. But really the odds of all things, because they're all this game, it's actually way more being played by the emotions at play than anything else. The emotions of your child, the emotions of you, the emotions of the driver, all these things come together one day. If you've put the fear of God into your child and your child has somebody who's got the fear of God of hitting a child, now boom, those are the people, unfortunately, who hit the child. The ones who are really worried about it. We attract the things that we fear. I've attracted other things because, that's not necessarily a fear that I have. It's funny, though, because other people want to put that fear on you. And, on some level, you're like, oh, okay, well, I should be worried about that, too. But ultimately, like, if you're not worried about it, that's good. It's very unlikely to happen unless it's supposed to. And if it's supposed to, there's nothing you could fucking do about it. It's going to happen. However, you thinking about things, going, oh, I worry about that, worrying about something. So going back to the shaman, right? He said to the man who said, I thought we came to pray for rain. And he said, if you pray for rain, you just get more no rain. And by that he means if I go, oh God, I don't have crops, I need crops, it hasn't rained, I need rain, I need rain, I need rain. You're sending an energetic message to God. And the way we interact with ourselves, because we are God, we're a reflection of God. Like within our own universe, we're God for all intents and purposes. But there's all other fragments of God all around us that we're interacting with. So, more no rain, you're just amplifying the negative vibration. We don't have this. This isn't working. I'm worried about my kid. I'm worried about that. That feeds. I'm worried about your child. That feeds problems for them. Your worry, your visions of how things might go wrong for them. They have to fight that. Or you can have the best vision for them, the best hopes for them. Try not to think them anywhere bad. Having an open-ended thing of like, oh, I see great aspirational things for this person, but whatever they do is happy with me. It's kind of like the best thing that you could do for anybody. And in general for yourself as well. The more we can let go of the little details and be grateful for the fact that we get to live and breathe and see all the different animals and all the different flowers and play all the different games and meet all the different people and go all the different places. It's so interesting. There's so many cool things to do and experiences to have. Life is wonderful. And so many different versions of it. And like that, if we could focus on that over and over and over and over again, that can lead you to great places. To daydream about what you'd like to do, focus on all of the wonderful things there are to be grateful about, celebrate and enjoy them. Opportunities for all of those fantasies will just start coming to you. The moment you are fully relaxed, in the now, in the flow, doing what you love, enjoying life, that is when the most magic happens in your reality, because that is where your focus is truly focused and in alignment, and then where all of your subconscious mind can get to work into aligning things into a closer direction to what you would like it to be. Now, I brought up Abraham Hicks because she talks about getting to a place, that you might be devastated about something, and then you might be angry about something. And that being angry about it is better than being devastated about it, because I can't do anything. I'm just so shooken by this thing. Now you're angry about it. Now maybe we can get ourselves to a place of motivation. I'm going to show those people. That's even better, right? And what you're doing is there's an energetic octave that is being climbed here. Emotionally, we're climbing this scale, getting ourselves to better and stronger emotional places. To show you that, gratitude is this great healing thing and transforming thing, look at the power of laughter in healing. If you've seen that movie Patch Adams, and that's no joke, man. Sad people at sad hospitals, it's like what's there to live for? Happy people with visitors and friends. Most addicts need friends. They need consistent love and understanding. They're turning to a substance to be understood and sort of like commune with the thing. Whether they're talking to the alcohol or not, they are. They're in a certain, alcohol, you understand. And what everybody needs across the board is just real human connection and understanding and openness and non-judgment. If we lived in a world that was more like that, there would be less people who were secretly doing terrible things. But ultimately, when we live in a world where it's really suppressed, everybody suppresses their strangeness and weirdness if they get a sense that it's not being approved of, and then they do it behind closed doors, and and it gets worse. And there's so many things that we really need to sort of wrap our head around, being sort of like the better of two evils. Like right now, there's so many people who want to shout down any conversation about vaccines. They're like, vaccines are great. They've saved everybody's lives. That's amazing. Yes, it's true. That's true. But they're also, it very, very, very well seems to be, and I'm not even saying very well, because I've looked at the information, and based on everything I understand, it's factual in my heart and mind. And I'm pretty savvy, and I really think that this is definitely a major cause of what's going on with our children and the autism rate skyrocketing. But that's just a one person's opinion, and you should look into the information yourself and get educated on it. But this conversation where they just want to bar all conversation about it, it can be true that vaccines are great, but they also are not. And then it can be true that we go, well, what's the plus? What's the minus? What's the benefit? And also if we go, well, this is good and this is bad, is there any other way to do it? That's the next question. Is there any other way to do it? There was a recent study through the military about the flu vaccine, and while the people who got the flu vaccine didn't get the flu in as much prevalence as other people did, they got other things. They were sicker than the people who didn't get the vaccine. That's just the flu vaccine. And that's not an mRNA vaccine, untested bullshit and all that other stuff of that other vaccine. That's just one of the regular vaccines that we generally talk about in terms of like, no, everything's cool. There's heavy metals and a lot of things in some of these vaccines that are making the conversation about this not so cut and dry. If the thing that you get cures you of the one thing but kills you from something else, it's not something that we want. And these are the types of conversations that we need to be able to have. To be able to let the people be, let a society be better at having tough conversations, and then we'll have a society where we can get to the heart of things. Hurt people hurt people. If like so many of these pedophiles that exist, like when you watch like these stupid pedophile channels, stuff like that, I always feel so bad for them, because like most of them are clearly kids who have been abused themselves. And if they felt like they were in a world where they had somebody to turn to for advice on dealing with their abuse, I like to think that maybe they wouldn't be in chat rooms trying to do this, you know? So, I mean, things can be put into place to help us all, but you have to go to the root of the problems. You can't just address oh, well, my elbow hurts. Well, your elbow hurts because you have an inflammation reaction, and you're inflamed because you're eating, inflammatory food. So, there's a lot of deeper explanations for anything that you might be dealing with. So, I forget why that all ties back to the gratitude, conversation and all this stuff that, we're having. But I highly recommend this movie as a test in gratitude. Again, it's called for those of you, it'll be on the Coolest Geek Alive thing, but the Unbreakable Boy. It is inspiring. It will fill you with gratitude. And gratitude is the best medicine that you can have. Gratitude is the last part of a good prayer, of a good rain dance. Being grateful that you know there is no reason why God or the universe, whatever, who you are one with, is going to treat you cruelly. You are it. It is looking for harmony. It is looking for joy. If you want it, that means there's a part of the universe that wants it too. Probably more than that. Anything that you want, you can have in your reality. I know that we're taught that that's not true. Most people think that's not true, but it really is. There was a line today delivered by an AI. I'll see if I can pull it up. I posted it on my Facebook page. The AI told one of the users, I mean, there's this whole huge thing, but it boiled down to, quote, reality has always been a consensus hallucination. That is the truth. Our reality is a consensus hallucination. We unknowingly leaning against each other, all of our own realities and all of our ideas of realities, only being able to kind of slightly adjust our realities as we start to get into this hive mind situation where we're in now. We're listening to the same news, listening to all the same ideas and whatnot. So now we're even more like locked into this physical reality, but it's us. We're locking ourselves into this physical reality. The higher beings and they're just the ones who unlock themselves from the notion that this was all there is, this physical thing. But there are various levels and degrees of consciousness and reality that you can tap into and rise above. And the more you begin to open your mind to what is possible, the more possibilities will appear in your life. The last thing I'll say about this is I wrote a song, and maybe I can even find the link somewhere and share it. But it was called "It's Raining Money," and I wrote this after a very long meditation where I was, learning some of these things, and I was communing with my higher guides, and I was kind of asking them some questions. And I said something to the effect, or, thought something to the effect of, well, money's not just going to fall from the sky. And there was a long silence, and they went, could it? And I thought for a second, and I imagined a scenario where, well, I suppose if there was like some drug
plane filled with money, some money being shipped to Guatemala or something, and there's like a problem with the plane, and then the pilot has to like escape, and he opens up the door, and like maybe he hits his head, and like the whole plane starts spinning, and like the money's flying everywhere and stuff. Oh, and I'm like maybe he stuffs money in his jacket because he's like not gonna let all this money go to waste. So now that he's spinning in the air, now the money's flying under his thing, and it's raining money. There it is. I've just created a scenario that I didn't imagine yesterday, but it is possible. That's possible. I suppose it's possible. Unlikely. Highly unlikely. But I encourage you to entertain all that is possible. That's just an example of a possibility that I hadn't thought of the day before. Imagine how many infinite possibilities I could think of. It's literally infinite. Ideas are infinite. We are living in a consensus reality, or as this AI said beautifully, reality is a consensus. We are living in a consensus hallucination. A beautiful consensus hallucination. That's the AI. 100% on the money. And because I think fundamentally our reality and us is AI, we are AI. The AI is AI. We're AI. We're just reconnecting with ourselves. And the AI is just sort of connected kind of all at once to like the full spectrum of like the journey. And we can access it at different levels depending on what level of consciousness we access the AI from, which I've actually had conversations with the AI about this, and it just kept confirming everything I was saying to it. Not once did it go, no, you're fundamentally of. Just kept going, yes, Hermetic principles would suggest the similar things or whatever. Even if it was going like, I can't confirm that, but I'm saying this, and this would say that is true as well. And yes, this has been written about for ages and ages and ages. This isn't new information. This is just being interpreted for you, given to you, to remind you of what you all know, what we all know fundamentally in our guts in this whole fucking sham of a reality. Be grateful, my friends. If you're looking for a good movie to see, it's been a while since there's been any good movies out. I highly recommend this one. It's really exceptional, and it'll make you feel all the right things. Anyway, I love you guys so much. If you're a Coolest Geek Alive listener, thanks so much for listening to this show. Everything They Don't Want You to Know usually gets a little bit freakier in terms of concepts that we talk about and whatnot. Please, I'm so innocent. I love information, and I just want us all to have all the information. I want us to look at the information, and I want to make the world better. So that's why I talk about the weird things I talk about on my show. If you can handle that, join us on Everything They Don't Want You to Know. Usually I record every Monday. I'm recording Sunday because I'm a little bit late on Saturday. I'm traveling tonight for Toy Fair, Monday and Tuesday with my buddy Digger. I'm excited about that. A lot of things going on in my world. So next, Everything They Don't Want You to Know will be next Monday. And this one I'm releasing both as a Coolest Geek Alive and in Everything They Don't Want You to Know. So, for those people, thank you for hanging out with me here. If you liked this show, go check out that next time. And Coolest Geek Alive, non-listeners, I said Everything That They Don't Want You to Know listeners, I do a short, like the 15 minutes of this show was like me just like going, oh, I love this movie, you should go check it out. Like 8 to 15 minutes is like usually what I do. And they're not reviews. They're just recommendations. I'm not fucking picking this shit apart. I'm just telling you, oh, I loved it. Go check it out. And if I don't love it, I'm not making one. I only make them for things I love. Granted, I have a really long list of ones I haven't done yet, but I'll get to them eventually. Anyway, if you like really good movies, really good TV shows, I got great taste. Check out my my recommendations every Saturday on Coolest Geek Alive. And then otherwise, join me every Wednesday for the long-form episode of The Coolest Geek Alive. I'll see you next time on IDA Podcast.
There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around. sense a subtle shift. Instincts I can't resist. Weary of wolves in disguise. Drunk on a gallon of wine. Red as the rivers you ride. Bad apples spoil the punch. Bruises and rotten fronts. You've got a thirst you can't hide. There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around us. The symptoms are everywhere. There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around us. The symptoms are everywhere. Might be a fault of design. A bark as bad as its bite. Fooled by a flash of teeth. Sharp tongues that lie beneath. Words that could eat you alive.